Welcome back to Suffocating in Suburbia. I'm your host, Stevie Chibi. Where have you been? You're probably wondering. You're probably saying, whatever happened to Stevie's podcast? He hasn't
Where
done
have
it
you
in
been?
weeks. He hasn't done it in weeks. And you know what? Nobody asked whatever happened to your podcast. Nobody, not one person. But I'm doing it again. And I'm starting off season two the same way I started off season one with my first guest. That was the first guest on season one and the first guest on season two, my buddy, the poet, Billy Lamont. Hey, Billy!
Hey, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing
Good to
great.
see you.
Here's the thing I want to tell my audience first, audience of whatever, three. And then we're not live. I'm taping this and it'll go out later. But I asked Billy, I said, Billy, you released a new CD. And I was so happy for him. He released a brand new CD. I said, send me a copy of the CD. I'm even willing to pay for it. I'm not like that. Send me a copy. We could talk about it on the podcast. Of course, he said, I'm not going to make you pay for it. Don't worry. I get a box in the mail like a week later. And what is it? Not his new CD. Not his new CD. Where is it? Not his new CD. Eulogy Flowers for the Living. That's his new one. Hey, you hold it up at the same time. But he also sent me three other CDs. This one, the Gallery of Light. All right. This one, I don't even know the name of it. What happened? Did I open it up wrong? Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, I had it open wrong.
Into the 21st Century?
Into the 21st Century, Billy Lamont. And Hedge of Thorns with Jesus on the cover. I guess he's on the, is he on the CD? Does he make a guest appearance?
Yes.
He always does. He's always,
he's always with
you. He's always in the band, right?
It's hard to mic him in the other dimension, but it worked out beautiful.
This was so nice of you to send me all of these. Thank God I still have a CD player in my car. You know, cars don't come with CD players now. Well,
yes.
Like old people are being, phased out. They're either going to kill us with a virus or they're going to kill us by taking our ability to play music away. Because now everything's streaming. Everything got to have Spotify or Pandora or whatever. If you don't have that, then you're like, I got an 8-track player. Is that good? No. I got a cassettes. I got 8,000 cassettes. Can I play those in the car? No.
Oh.
All right. Well, at least I still have. At least I can play CDs, right? No.
No, we wanted you to stream it because the artist gets
nothing.
0.6 of a cents.
Yeah. They're screwing everybody. They're screwing the artists.
All my
Somebody's making money.
Though.
Somebody's making money, but it's not the artists and it's not the record stores. And vinyl is coming back, but you can't play vinyl in the car. Most people spend half their life in a car, except for the pandemic. Now we're home, but
I have a lot of stress about this.
It's terrible. You gave me CDs. I can't.
We can listen to your podcast on Spotify.
I know, that's true.
You can stream on Spotify and Apple Music.
All of that stuff.
On YouTube.
But I got to be honest with you, Billy. I did not listen to all. I did not listen to all of them. I listened to spotty.
Why not?
I'm sorry. I have no excuse. I'm very busy lately.
Look at Jesus on the cover of that album and do a little soul searching. Now, why
I did listen to this one. I really enjoyed
healthy
it.
Little guilt for you.
I enjoyed this one a lot, but I really loved your new one. I loved your new one a lot. I was very.
And I'm joking, of course. I'm sorry. Life is busy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was very impressed with this one because it reminded me. It gave me like a feeling like I was listening to Patti Smith with a little bit of a U2 backdrop and a little bit of like that 90s. Am I on target a little bit?
Yeah. To me, it was like my Rattle and Hum, Patti Smith Easter, the White Album. It could have been mastered better. It was raw, but it was the pandemic,
I liked it. I thought it was really cool, and you had some nice musical treatments in there. Now tell me, you got on the back here. That's you, right?
1988 with my mullet.
I was going to say that's not you now because that's a little. And who's this gentleman?
That's me 30 years later with same spot, pretty much, in the same graveyard. And the concept is my grandmother, who I was very close with, kind of like a mom, my Nana, used to say, give me my flowers while I'm living, not when I'm dead. So at the beginning, I was in a band, Walk on Water, and my first band in 1988, and we were on national radio, and I started incorporating in between poems, like The Politics of Being Me, which is on there. And so what I did is during the pandemic, I planned on making this whole other Poet Billy Lamont Medicine Show album live. And it was a pandemic. I couldn't do any live, except so it was a gift doing like the podcasts and, with different, Zoom from my room in my apartment, which is a little, challenging living situation the last 5 years. But things are changing. But so that's a gift. But what I did is I went into the archives, like with the Walk on Water. And then I started as a poet as Walk on Water was breaking up. And then I was doing my industrial music experiments with Billy Poulos. And I started going to Manhattan, like ABC No Rio on Clinton Street and Alphabet City. And, because I love the art scene like you, with Lou Reed and Patti Smith.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And television. And so I kind of hit there with just a guitarist at a lot of the poetry readings as I was forming a new Walk on Water. One of the guys we experimented with, Clayton, he ended up, I was amongst his first electronic music recordings, and he ended up becoming really huge with Circle of Dust, and then Cell Dweller, and now Scandroid. And he started his own, as an entrepreneur, he started his own label, Fixed, out of Detroit. But he was our friend when we were younger, and we were experimenting with electronic music. So like the kind of beginnings of this CD is, it starts off with The Poet's Eye, which was a recording from him. And he's a guy that's getting like 1 million hits now as I've gone on. My new book's doing well, but I'm more of like an artist. He's an artist too, the forward-thinking pioneer, brilliant, whether it's an entrepreneur or doing, like I heard that you're doing some different things with TV and different things, and congratulations, well deserved. He does like trailers and for movies, but he's also done soundtracks for big movies, big TV shows. And so he has his record label. He's the live performer in that. So I started the CD off kind of like in that time period, and I was like, let me kind of think back. I referenced the Gallery of Light, which was my spoken word rock opera in '97, where, my memories are like, Matt, I pose a question where I'm looking back, is this Ministry of Information just a relic of my memory? That's it. Or a work, a priceless art on display in the Museum of My Heart, the politics of being me. And so then I went into the Walk on Water, and then there was new stuff. So now I thought the album was done. And a couple experiments, when I had an hour left in the studio in October, things kept getting delayed with the pandemic. And so that allowed me to have, and then again in January, these improv moments with extra studio time ended up having some of the biggest guests. So the CD almost feels like it's something completely different that was created in process, almost as sacred art. So it still had kind of that same kind of feel as my last book, Words Ripped from a Soul Still Bleeding, that intimacy and that roughness. But it was like a completely different album because I was like, I'm stuck at home, or maybe to be in essential work at work, let me digitize things. And, and that's kind of how that all came together. So I was like, let's take a photo then and now,
I would have never realized that. I mean, you look completely different. I didn't realize it was you, but.
And then on the inside, as you look at it, see now all this stuff is out digitally, and
it's like you went from Ozzy Osbourne to Walter White somehow.
Thank you.
Maybe, I don't know.
I guess.
You went from a guy who bites off bat heads to a guy that makes meth in an RV in the middle of New Mexico.
Oh, thank you.
So it is a compliment.
Look at that. See this. The inside has kind of like through the years.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that.
I did see that. It's very cool.
And so to me, there's.
Oh, you know what? The inside cover, I should have realized that was you. It's the same picture.
But at the same time, like the hard copy is what you spend a little, when you have time. We love vinyl. To me, it's like the album where you spend some time with it. But streaming, most people are streaming it. And a lot of my plans got sidetracked, some for difficult reasons and some for really good reasons. But the beauty of some of these sidetracks and the pandemic is this hopeful music came out of it, like sacred art.
Yeah.
And it really felt like, the spirit that upholds life, the Holy Spirit, Jesus popped in, spiritually, kind of like there was an inspiration. But I feel like, say I had an extra hour in the studio. I was in Blockhead Studio in Deer Park, and me and Mike Peters talked about doing a collaboration in 1995, more than just the one we did on Into the 21st Century. You know, he was kind to me. He wrote the foreword to my first book, The Gallery of Light, in 1994. Yeah. So we have a whole history. We worked on the scriptures together for Muslim, Christian, and Jews, and the Love, Hope, Strength organization. But what was really awesome is I just did a one take kind of thing with an hour I had in the studio, sent it to him, and him and his wife Jules sent me a message that I can use it as a gift, you know, wow. All the rights and everything like in the past. And I was just like, what do you think of it? And it felt like it was of the moment, because it was called Love is a Revolution. And it just felt like with everything happening during the pandemic, and actually I have his shirt on. It says Tribes.
Oh, from the new album.
Stop the War, Tribes.
Yeah.
He has a new album. He was making a new album. I didn't know that at the same time. And so in the rawness of my moment kind of fit the rawness of his moment. I guess
that album is incredible. I listened to it like 10 times. I love it. It gets better every listen.
Yes, yes. Oh man, I love it.
We're talking about The Alarm. The Alarm is a new album out. Well, it's Mike Peters, really, and his wife. It's really good.
Yep. And then there's Smiley, who played with Joe Strummer and the Muscarellas on drums. And then on guitar, he was in the Cults some, but really James Stevenson was more Gene Loves Jezebel's guitarist.
Oh, really?
And he also played on, you know, like a big hit with Kim Wilde, You Keep Me Hanging On. But he was also ex with Billy Idol before he was in a punk band, Billy Idol before. So I actually had the pleasure of, there was a different drummer at that time, being on stage with them.
You mean Generation X?
No, like James Stevens, Mike Peters, and then Craig Adams was in The Alarm back then. And the drummer from the big Irish band, Stiff Fingers.
Stiff Little Fingers. Yeah, Stiff Little Fingers.
I'm thinking this. Did I mess it up with the Stones?
That's the guy from the Jam. The guy from the Jam is in that band, the bass player.
There was a festival, the Cornerstone Festival in Chicago in 2004. I was making a plea for Larry Norman's healthcare in his life, and Mike was kind enough to let me open for him.
Wow.
And I introduced them, and they kind of came on stage behind me with the guitars in the air as I was finishing up. And the bass player was Craig Adams from Sister of Mercy and Sisters of Mercy and another Mission UK. So it's like really like a lot of bands that we listen to, you know.
Yeah, I love that. I love that band.
So there's the original Alarm, but then there's the newer ones, and they've changed members a couple of times, and but always great, you know. Always great.
That is great.
So then in January, Larry Norman, who was such a part of my life, even playing the communion song at my wedding, which didn't last long, but to Zion's mom, unfortunately, but our friendship, he came out and played the communion song in a vineyard out on the East End of the North, and that's how close we were. And we were making an album that we never did. So when I was going into the studio, I thought I was going to be making something with Ernesto D'Alessio from Big Magic, redo some songs and do a new track. But he has such a huge heart. He's such a great guitarist, but he also has a big heart for Vietnam veterans. So with COVID and stuff, there's a couple of times he was quarantined and everything kept getting delayed. And so finally I'm like, well, let me just digitize some tracks and see what happens with him and hear how it sounds, so maybe I could do the next project with him, or maybe I'll end up doing it and then, he won't be quarantined anymore. So what happened, I went into a great studio, the Sound Cellar, close to where I live in Huntington Station. So the last years, and it had a wonderful experience because as I'm digitizing, I had an idea the night before. Me and Larry Norman always talked about maybe me singing more, but my gift is more for poetry. And even as a songwriter or as an artist, I have an artist approach to songwriting. But when I was younger, I probably have a few hit songs laying around. but I was more interested in reinventing the wheel as an artist, and you know, you go in different directions. But so he has a song. We talked about doing a number of songs together, and then he was recording new songs for me. We even recorded at the Lamp House Cafe in the basement in Port Jeff. He came out after we did a show at the Jubilee 2000. But anyway, what's interesting is Dave, one of the owners of the Sound Cellar, ended up being my engineer, and he was great. So I was doing this experimental poetry, but the name of the song was If I Were a Singer. And Larry always told me to sing more, and this is one of the things we were thinking of doing. So I was really nervous because I'm hearing, it was pretty emotional for me, hearing Larry's voice coming out of the speakers, and I just came up with this idea the night before. Can I even get the rights? But I know, you know, I had the, you know, we discussed it, but now it's different. He's not here anymore, you know? And so I just kind of in faith, like with Mike Peters, I just did what I was feeling intuitively. And the last 5 lines, I got my confidence up to sing. And when I went into the studio, I told Dave, I was like, there's been like an electricity on me when I've been reciting lately, you know? So I was like, you know, so I was like, I made a joke out. I was serious, but I made a joke out. I was like, so you might have to stand back or whatever, you know, but I was chill. But when we listened to it back, I felt this spiritual, like electricity go through. It was more than like the chills of like, that's a good Broadway show or a good, it was like, right. It wasn't a nervous twitch, but it was like spiritual, you know, so I go to him,
like like a wow moment, like, whoa.
Yes.
You feel it through your whole body.
And it was more than an emotion, but I went to say to him, wow, the electricity thing just happened. He goes, wait. I don't know what he believes, what he was. He's like, it's happening to me. I'm waiting until it ended. And so like we shared this moment. I never met him before. He's the owner of the Sound Cellar. So I'm like, I want to do all my recording there. But he was like, there's a ghost in the room. You know, all I know is it was like an intuitive moment where I was like, this is right.
Yeah.
And it was such a gift because it's kind of like closure to me too. And It worked out with I actually put the wrong, I was asking the wrong people for the rights. I went to his brother and Solid Rock, who I was supposed to be on his label, and they gave me the rights to it. And so this album, at the last minute or every delay, it changed. And I feel like it's better now, but it's not perfect. It's rough. There's, you know, some things are taken from live.
Well, that's what I mean. There's definitely a live feel. I was just going to say that. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I like that raw live feel. You know, I mean, one of my favorite artists of all time is Elvis Costello. I've been listening a lot to him lately. And a lot of his albums are just live. You know, you could tell it's almost like raw, almost unrehearsed. You know, it's got all the edges in there, and there's nothing polished about it. And I like that. And when you first hear it, it's like an assault. You're like, whoa, this doesn't sound right. Something doesn't sound right, but it's on purpose. And, you know, the Rolling Stones were famous for that. There's a story about David Sanborn. You ever hear him? He's a famous saxophone player, like a really polished jazz musician. And jazz musicians, even though it's improvisational, they're very, you know, specific about recording. You know, they record.
And me, it's more natural, that rawness. I don't know. I'm more like the Stones.
And he played with the Stones, David Sanborn. I think it was on the Exile on Main Street album. But he came out and he said, the Rolling Stones, you don't realize, because he wasn't a rock guy, David Sanborn. He's a jazz guy. And he didn't really appreciate rock music. He said, when I went in there, I thought the Rolling Stones were like this kind of a scrappy, garagey band. He said, but when they were rehearsed, they were perfect. He said he never heard such perfect musicianship. And then they would come in and go,
yes,
yeah, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do this. And they would just like screw it up. And in his eyes, they were screwing it up. But the whole point was like, make it perfect and then just kind of go like that, you know, just off a little bit. And that's what their appeal is, you know, like it's that little bit of like grungy, like the whole grunge movement was like that. It was all on purpose. It was just raw and loud. And the same thing
and
with
the Clash. And the Clash. They were
The
like
Clash
great
were
musicians, but
brilliant
they were making a
musicians,
little
but you wouldn't
off
know
the
it.
tune. Yes.
You wouldn't know they were brilliant musicians because it wasn't perfect. But they weren't looking for perfection. They didn't want to be Yes or ELP or Genesis. They wanted to be raw. They wanted to have that garage, like we're a band that just got together and played in the garage for it's our third rehearsal. But it's not. What I love about what you're doing is that same kind of feeling where it's not perfect, but you don't want it to be. And
Yes.
that's as good a compliment as you could ever receive.
Thank you. Thank you so much, CBGB. That's really what I was going for with
Yeah.
the Poet Billy Lamont Medicine Show, which hasn't come to fruition yet. And it's that live thing. But now I have some musicians that are like, Eric Clapton and Grateful Dead. And then I got other that are more Stonesy and punky. And I think I was envisioning it more punky, but maybe I'd make it open to both as long as it's live. And sometimes I'll listen to I put 2 versions of Puppets on the Park there. One was an experimental first version, but the video camera in those days in 1991 turned in New York Avenues for Long Island Kids turned off. So I'm like, I missed some of those words. I got to go into the studio. But you know what? That experimental feel, they played it on USB. They played a few things.
Oh, wow.
And they liked it. But then it was just too distorted for on air. But I'm like, I hope they make it past halfway because it gets really good. But that's the nature of live. And I feel like that's what's missing for music. And I feel like that's what I've been trying to form is more like, a punk band. I feel like I have these punk songs. But before the pandemic, March 1st, I was at Nice Weather for Media, Good Weather for Media in down East Village. And, it was a Sunday thing. And I wanted to form, I'm thinking a punk band, and it was a spoken word thing. I went in there, I did something, and then they were like, can you come and be the featured poet? So I went, me and this other excellent artist, John Patero, played. And he was like a jazz guy, but he also loved a lot of the same stuff we like. So I'm thinking, wow, the guy from King Missile, John Hall, is in the audience, and I make a reference, and I'm talking to him about forming a punk band, and he goes, why don't you go a little more Velvet Underground? And I appreciated his feedback. And do you know that blah, blah, blah would play with you? I'm like, blah, blah, blah would play with me? How do you know that? He goes, because I just have a feeling, And then John Patero offered me where Kerouac used to recite at Cafe Bohemia. I think I was supposed to play July 1st, and they were going to form a jazz band and record me where Charlie Parker, Miles Davis did their early recordings in Kerouac. And I was going to be one of the featured acts, and they were going to record me live. But the pandemic happened, so I never did it. So I'm like, jazz and punk. But it was almost like, look at the Clash. There were times where it kind of went together, but there's just something in, like jazz could be, I like that raw jazz instead of the polished, because like some of it was almost punky because it was raw,
Yeah. You know what, Billy? I only have 10 minutes to go. I have the cheap version of Zoom, and it only allows me so much time. So
the new album is Eulogy Flowers for the Living.
Yeah. Tell me about the new album, where people could buy it.
So it's on.
They go to your website, your Facebook.
Yeah, BillyLamont.net, Facebook, Instagram, and it's on Spotify. You can buy it on Amazon or
buy it. Don't do it on Spotify because then he gets a penny for every 75 times you play it.
Yes.
Spend the money. He's a starving artist, and he's a good guy.
And like the last podcast, the starving artist feeds my soul. Attention, wannabes.
You know what I love? When they have the starving artist sale. You ever see they have that once a year on TV? The starving artist sale. I used to make a joke. I went to the starving artist sale. I bought Pierre. He's down to 98 pounds. He's a starving artist.
Being you're one of my favorite comedians. How about I read a couple of funny poems? For the rest of it, just have fun. But yeah, Eulogy Flowers for Living. It's my
You've got like 6 minutes left. You want to recite? You have a 6-minute poem you can recite to end the podcast?
I'm going to do I'm going to do a smorgasbord.
Okay.
And I'm going to start just with, I wanted to write a haiku, but I didn't want it to be about nature. You might know this one. It was also on my Beyond Babylon album with Black House. But I wanted it to be, instead of about nature, do like Blake did. And you know, almost like these proverbs, you know, dark proverbs or whatever. So I'm going to recite a few. When you put that through my mind, it comes out, haiku a cuckoo. Work and slave all day, family times are too few. Haiku a cuckoo. Look at me cross-eyed or unkindly and I'll sue. Haiku a cuckoo. Do not tell the truth, hide it, whatever you do. Haiku a cuckoo. And the grand finale one, I talk to myself and never listen to you. Say it with me, haiku a cuckoo.
Cuckoo.
Everyone at home, the few people in their living room, haiku a cuckoo. Now, in that spirit, I was teaching classes in, you know, the different middle schools and high schools. So I was like, I want to teach onomatopoeias. And as you know, the word sounds like what it is, like buzz, you know, or bam, or
Todd Rundgren did a song called Onomatopoeia.
Well, that's what this is, but I won't tell you the title because it's kind of the punchline. Oh no, I drank way too much water before this long car ride. I want to pee. Onomatopoeia. So that's onomatopoeia. Now, we know oxymorons, right? So as I was trying to teach this, you know, I wrote the poem, you know, like an inappropriate appropriate or something like that. So I wrote this poem, Oxymoron. As anyone who knows me will attest, I am an everyday extraordinary, earthly spiritual, an average oddity, a standard quirky, that is irrelevantly relevant and ordinarily complex. Like an imperfectly perfect diamond that has attained an imbalanced balance to be dysfunctionally compatible with others, I guess you could call me a beautiful mess. Hey, that camera's faced in the wrong way, isn't it? Oh, well. Simply a huge oxymoron am I. So that's one. And now I got this other one.
I like that one.
It's just, I like to, thank you. I want to poke fun at darkness. So I call this Lucy Fur. I'm on the devil's hit list, but Lucy Fur, the height of soulless tyranny, will never allure or distract me, detract and subtract me, deceive, mislead, entrap, and attack me. Lucifer will never be able to whack me, stigmatize and subtract me. I am saving souls for eternity by the passion and blood of Lord Jesus and the word of my testimony. So there's a few. I have a bunch of poems I wrote with. I invented my own kinds of sonnets, my own kinds of proverbs, but there's, I don't know, let's make it, I think make it fun. How much time do we have now?
We're down to the last minute.
Last minute?
So
I have a villanelle I can read, which is more serious. Maybe we'll just say goodbye then. But I'm reading from...
We'll say goodbye. Once again, buy his book, Words Ripped from a Soul Still Bleeding. An edition. Was it the edition?
The poems for the future edition.
That's it. And we
Amazon
got Eulogy.
and Barnes and Noble. And
Flowers for the Living, Barnes and Noble. Go to his web. Go to Poet Billy Lamont on Facebook. You can buy all this stuff. Support this guy. He's a great guy. We met once.
Thank you, brother.
I did that whole story last time, but if you want to go back to the first episode, you'll find the whole story about how we met. But God love you, man. You're the best. You
too. I love you, man. You're one of my favorite comedians, and I don't know if you want to share some of the successes you've been having, but congratulations on a lot of the successes. I don't know what you can announce and what you can't, but
I decided 2 weeks ago I was going to, embark on an acting career, which is something I've always wanted to do. The only thing I've ever acted in, I did one student film for my nephew, and it was at Five Towns College, and there were like 30 films at the award show, and I won the Best Actor award out of all the 30 films. So I was very honored to win that. And it was called Suffocating in Suburbia, which is the same title as this, which I actually stole from a Graham Parker song called Nobody Hurts You from the album Squeezing Out Sparks. And he says the line, suffocated in suburbia, the new estates of claustrophobia. And I thought that was like the greatest lyric ever, because Graham Parker is one of my favorite lyricists of all time.
I would have called it Squeezing Out Rust. I would have called it Squeezing Out Rust, but I don't know why.
There you go. But yeah, he's great. And that always stuck with me, Suffocating in Suburbia. I think it's a really great it has alliteration, and it's just a cool sounding name for a podcast.
Oh,
and we
man.
named the film that. We named the film that.
And, alliteration, suffocating.
Suffocating in Suburbia. It rolls off the tongue. And like you said, it's an oxymoron in a way. Suffocating suburban. I don't know. Maybe it's not an oxymoron. I don't know what it is.
And as a big oxymoron, I recommend it highly.
My wife calls me an oxymoron without the oxy part. But listen, Billy, I gotta go. 55 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, Suffocating in Suburbia, my guest, Poet Billy Lamont. I love you, brother. God bless.
Love you. Thanks a lot. God bless you.
Praise the Lord. Love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Buy his CDs.